This is what we're looking for. Interoperability determines compounding growth or compounding risk issues. And the fascinating folks who are handling these standards, we get to surface the tensions and opportunities between these. And in an agentic enterprise, identity is no longer about login. So there's Markus Sabadello. We heard from Drummond Reed. We have Stefan Curran. Thank you, each of you. Julu, Panat, I want each of you to take 1 minute, introduce yourself and your protocol. That's just 1 minute, because the conversation to each other and with the hundreds and thousands watching is what we want next. Markus, we're going to start with you.
Hello, I'm Markus Sabadello from a company called Danube in Vienna, Austria. Been working for a long time on decentralized identity, and I'm one of the editors of the W3C Decentralized Identifier standard, also known as DIDS, which several other people here in this conference have already talked about.
Thank you. Julu?
Hi, everyone. My name is Julu Panat. I'm part of the product management team at Cisco. But within Cisco, we have an emerging tech incubation team, and we have come to build out what we call as a project called Agency, which we recently donated to Linux Foundation. While Agency has, a lot more than identity, there is interoperability, there is discovery of agents, so very relevant having, and some of my colleagues are also on the call. But today I'm here to represent the identity working group, and we are trying to solve the problems where, we truly believe that there is going to be this agentic platform and autonomous agents will be in play. And how do you go about identity of agents, especially when there is no human in the play, right? And they are autonomous agents working on behalf of other agents or humans. And how do you solve the problems of identification, authentication, authorization, and when you have ephemeral agents, what are the challenges that come along with it? So we have a robust working group as part of the agency project at Linux Foundation, and so very interested in this conversation.
Thank you. Stephen.
Yes, I'm Stephen Curran from consultant. I largely work with the government of British Columbia in Canada, leading up a community organizer team, if you will, working on BC is open by default in all of the work we do, especially in things like identity and verifiable credentials. We work very hard for pushing for as much privacy as we can get in this space. And so I've worked on a number of standards in the community. The on-cred specification was a work we did a lot with, and continue to work on other zero-knowledge proof future versions of zero-knowledge proofs in verifiable credentials. So that's my background.
Thank you. And one of the things that we're surfacing here is the tensions, opportunities, and excitements between these. And you might have to be defining some terms to make sure that we have maximum interaction for the Q&A for all the folks who need to be contributing to this. But the four of you are essential, vital for the things which keep us up at night in what we would think of as an agentic enterprise. So I'm really curious, Markus, what is your opinion on the proliferation of DID methods and the impact on solidification and adoption?
So that's a really good topic. So some of the other speakers have already talked about DIDs and DID methods, right? Just to reiterate, DIDs are the type of identifier that's designed to be decentralized, obviously, so working without central authorities, working without intermediaries. And one aspect of that is that the W3C Decentralized Identifier standard defines a common syntax. What does a DID look like? And it defines a common resolution mechanism. How do you get from a DID to technical data or metadata associated with it? But the standard does not define the one mandatory mechanism how the DIDs are actually created and stored. So there are some DID methods that use blockchains. There are DID methods that use DNS or web-based protocols. There are also DID methods that are based on ephemeral public keys or peer-to-peer networks. So that is an aspect of decentralization, that individual DID methods define how exactly the DID works. And so when we say there's a proliferation of DID methods, there are more than 200 DID methods out there, then you may think that's a problem, but it's actually a solution to something, because those 200 things, those 200 blockchains and other types of networks would otherwise not be interoperable at all. But using DIDs and using DID methods, you get this abstraction layer, you get to this common syntax, the common resolution mechanism. So I think it's important to understand that this construction is something that enables interoperability and is not a problem. And we've already heard some other speakers today talk about things like universal identity resolution layers, universal registry brokers, and things like that. And I think this aligns very nicely with the DIDs and the DID method approach.
And Drummond mentioned this earlier as well. I'm curious on if one of these was to become a dominant standard, what risks would it remove? And it's really, we're about de-risking. What risks would it introduce, if any?
Well, I'm happy to briefly explain that DID methods have different qualities. The security of the method, the decentralization of the method, the cost of the method. We're seeing a lot of interest now in a subset of those methods that are called self-certifying identifiers, which they're generated locally, they're cryptographically verifiable, and you can actually put the history of the changes you make, like rotating public keys or endpoints, and that can be verified too. So you can look at the risks associated with any particular DID method, but as it matures, as DIDs mature, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's going to become the safest and strongest way to share an identity and the binding to the public keys and the endpoints. And I want to make this point, AI agents need that identity, and we've seen more proposals. In fact, I'm not sure I know of any proposal for agentic identity that does not involve DIDs. Some of them involve conventional PKI certificates, but the need for the scale and the flexibility and the decentralization means we're going to be using DIDs one way or the other. And I think the majority of adoption will be for self-certifying DID methods. And we can talk for hours about that, but I won't deep dive.
Julu, can you relate that to TBAC as a more granular access control model for agents in context of?
Yeah. So, similarly, same concept as, Drummond has said, we at Agency also developed, what we called as agent identity, which is basically a cryptographical verifiable identity. And we are using, the inspiration from DIDs to be able to, define what the identity should comprise of. And that includes, verifiable claims or credentials that go along with it, like what task it can perform. All those definitions come into this being. So once you have the authentication done, the next phase is authorization, what that agent can do. While a lot of the access controls that we have today, whether it's RBAC, ABAC, while they are very static identities, right? But in agents, when they have to, do the authorization, they might take on different roles or different tasks real time. And when that happens, you can't just have all the scopes and all the things kind of set up statically in a policy engine, right? And so what TBAC, which stands for many things, T represents tool-based access control, task-based access control, and transaction access-based control.
And thank you for defining that, taking the space to identify that term, because this is about interoperable literacy for the humans who are operating these standards for technologies. Thank you for doing that. Did you all get that?
So I think that's the key, is like all these, we think it is going to evolve. The TBAC is going to evolve. There's going to be a lot more T's added to it. But the key is agents behave on, execute on task. And how do you understand what the agent is trying to accomplish, which means point in time at what the agent is trying to have to figure out, what is the task, what that task requires, what tools, and what resources and what transactions we are allowed. So all of this has to be dynamically, just in time, generated in order to understand what is the authorization that should be involved, which is essentially proof of control, right? So that's where we are getting into, and that's what agency is kind of venturing into. But we also have to be real, because there is humans going to be there. There is going to be autonomous agent, which is the future. So we have to kind of map these two and come to this melting point where how do we get people to build this trust and be able to move on and let the control go to these autonomous agents and solve for those. So those are some of the things that we are working on our end.
And you covered some of the real identity questions for enterprises. Can we prove who authorized an agent's actions? Can we revoke authority instantly across systems? This is something, Stephen, I would love you to talk about from identity as a control surface. That's what this session is about, reframing identity as that control surface that Julu was discussing. What is the value of zero knowledge outside the blockchain? Because this, frankly, is a term that has a spicy effect on certain profiles in the enterprise. So what is the value of ZK, zero knowledge outside of the blockchain, and towards the future of data privacy via digital austerity?
So ZK is about data minimization, about a person being able to control and minimize the amount of data that they're sharing to others, and to know where their data is being used by having cryptographic methods to minimize your data and to provide unlinkability, non-correlation across verifiers, and centering it on the person. You get that benefit. Now, what we want is, as well, from a privacy preservation perspective, is for entities to treat personal data as toxic. So they build systems, protocols that operate on minimal amounts of data necessary for verifying things. You look like you're going to say something, Ben.
I am. Entity data as toxic? You're framing entity
personal
data.
Personal data as toxic.
Okay.
What I want to do is control my personal data. So you've got this contradiction between context. You want to have an AI have context about you, but you also don't want that shared across the world. We've got these really interesting ideas for in government where what the government wants to provide citizens is a one-stop shop for all of your government services, and AI can be a huge benefit in doing that. But to do that in a much smoother way than, say, APIs connecting all the services and having them isolated, but only connecting when the citizen allows it. So huge benefit in being able to provide that context and be able to get all of those services in one go. But you also have to control where that data is going. Now you've given it all in one place. How is that going to be abused, and how can we prevent that from being abused? I think zero knowledge of simply not allowing it, making it possible, is the right way to do it, so that you only are operating on the minimum amount of data necessary to make decisions, not about personal data.
You make it sound so exciting and easy, frankly. Wow, the future is here, I'm feeling. But what can go wrong? What are the gaps that are there for this to become actualized in the strategy which we're trying to implement? This goes for anybody now.
You talked about auditing. I mean, those types of things are possible with zero knowledge solutions. So future ones have techniques, for example, for sharing data that only can be extracted when, say, a warrant is provided, and so that you can provide actual identity data that's not useful for the verifier. They can't correlate it, they can't share it across, but when necessary can be exposed. So there are techniques in zero knowledge about that, and those are the things that we should be building on and trying to include in these systems.
Markus and Julu, Stephen and Drummond, how often do your protocols interact with each other thus far? And how do you envision that? And I'm curious what the as is, and how, in the spirit of Patchwork, will you be envisioning interacting on identity going forward, taking you to the edge?
So maybe I could respond to that. In our case, the DIDs, the decentralized identifiers, they are basically worthless unless they interact with some other protocols, right? A DID doesn't really do much on its own, so it's a basis for other things, and this is true for identifiers in general, right? The basis for any kind of identity system is always the identifiers. We need digital names, digital addresses to refer to each other. Without that, we cannot have any kinds of transactions or connections or relationships, and without that, we cannot have any data sharing or messaging or trust or reputations. All of these things are based on identifiers, right? Julu was talking about authorization. Stephen was talking about personal data. And so identifiers are one relatively low-level building block. That reminds me a bit of the slide that Alex Tweedale had earlier today when he talked about the different stacks, right? W3C and IETF and ISO and so on. So in our case, as far as DIDs are concerned, definitely they are a low-level building block, and we need all the other protocols and all the other initiatives to make DIDs useful.
I'll volunteer a very, very specific answer.
Yes.
We are in the stage right now with AI infrastructure, in my view, exactly the same place we were before the emergence of the internet. Meaning we had local area networks, we had agents that can all talk to each other using their, their specific protocols in essentially silos. And to get to the Internet of Agents, we're going to have to tackle the same kind of issue. I think we have the identifiers that will be necessary, as we talked about. They will be DIDs. We have the credential, the overall formats in terms of verifiable credentials, although there are like 5 different formats out there. And we have a whole set of protocols, agency being a great example. My favorite thing is they're all converging at the Linux Foundation, or almost all of them are. I just saw the announcement yesterday that MCP has now been contributed there. So we're in that stage where now we have to get to, all right, what is the interoperable stack, the equivalent of the TCP/IP stack? And yes, that is what we've been working at Trust ORP, but we're now, I think we have to open our arms and go, okay, now how do we actually reach that?
And one of the most vigorous acceptors of this idea is Julu, because she's nodding so well on this topic. Tell us what's on your mind.
Yeah, I think it's just fascinating, right? So we started off the journey saying there is going to be, identity providers, whether it's through DIDs or the traditional IDP providers like Duo, Okta, Ori, all of these people, right? And that's not going to go away. That's the reality. Of course, we can take a first principles design and say, hey, we'll start everything from scratch. But reality is there are enterprises that are hooked to the traditional IDP, and we have to bring along. So when we kind of designed the digital identity or the badges or agent badges, and we do not just for agents, we also do for MCP servers, because we're thinking ahead and saying, okay, there's going to be this reciprocal authentication that also needs to happen, which I guess no one is yet talking about. Those are some of the things we'll have to solve for, right? So we said, let's build agent badges, which are based on cryptographic, verifiable credentials construct, taking it, into inspiration the W3C. But we support, maybe make it interoperable. So the badges can be constructed for the traditional IDP providers who provide agent IDs. It can be built for DIDs. So we are already thinking about that interoperability and building agent badges based on that. And that has got the resolver metadata, so we know who to go and resolve when it comes to agent badge verification. So that's first step, right? The second step is, as Stephen talked about, the auditability. We have a working group. We know that the OAuth standards do not complete. This, there is no idea of this delegation model being tracked. What needs to be audited is the information that is needed in order to audit, is it standardized or not. So we have a working group who are thinking along those lines, and we have major players like Duo and Ori and all those people come together and say, hey, let's standardize what should then agent be documenting, especially when it comes to authentication and authorization, especially when you have delegation models, impersonation models, all of those things. So I think we are getting there, and I think rightly said, we are on the Linux Foundation, so we are thinking all along these lines, and I'm sure everybody here is probably working on some aspects of it, and we think there's an converge some of these working streams.
Thank you. And food for thought. Linux Foundation and others this is already moving, and there's momentum here. From an enterprise framing of how can I utilize this already for my viable business models and entering markets, because these affect the gap between what goes into the vision and what we can execute on already. Who needs to be at the table that isn't already? I like to think that we've assembled everybody here, but to be clear, this is focused on standards and protocols interoperability. What do you see is needed that's not already here? Hit that gap. Markus, I see you thinking.
I'm thinking maybe someone else wants to go first.
Good thinking.
I'll throw out one. What I'm thinking about is the trust triangle, which has the issuer, the holder, and the verifier. And we've been working very hard to eliminate the sort of OIDC model of the holder is only role is to connect the issuer and the verifier, and so that those parties know everything and they're communicating about the holder. And so we've created this VC model where the issuer gives something to the holder as one process, and the holder gives something to the verifier to prove things, and the holder's out of the picture at that point. What we need, I think, is help in where an AI agent comes into that triangle. Now you've got an agent working for you, and suddenly are they presenting the credentials to the verifier? And now we're back to this model of the human is out of the interaction. Is the agent negotiating what's needed and then saying, okay, we're all set up, person here, share your verifiable credential to this verifier, and we can go from there, and keep those out of it. So I think what we could use help with, I think, is we have knowledge on how trust works in verifiable credentials in the model, where you use DIDs and things like that. But how do you bring extra parties into it? How do you bring the AI agents into it? And that's where getting help from agent people is what's needed, I think.
And what literacies are needed that you uniquely are contributing? You mentioned these earlier in your introductions, that you believe that you feel that others need to have increased literacy on in order to achieve that vision. I'll start with Markus. And when I say literacies, I mean simple handling, a capable handling of the standard or the element that's needed.
I mean, literacy, the end users, the people who will use any of this will never actually see the DIDs and the VCs behind that, behind what they're using, the applications and the agents and so on, but they will be exposed, I think, to these models and the roles that Stephen just mentioned, this issuer and holder and verifier model. And one thing that we have always said in the decentralized identity community is that these roles can also be rather flexible, right? They're not static. It's not like the only thing we can build is a government issuing to us a driving license and then we present it to someone else. But there are all kinds of variations where an individual can also be an issuer and issue a credential to another individual or to an organization. And we can also be verifiers, verifying somebody else's identity, and that's what the decentralized technologies like EIDs and VCs enable, right? I could issue a credential to you saying that you're an excellent moderator in this panel, and things like that. And that also extends to agents, right? Agents can have their own wallets, their own decentralized identities. They could potentially be all of these three roles, issuers and holders and verifiers, maybe to a point where agents verify each other's trust and reputation and figure out which one is the best agent to talk to. And this dynamic aspect of what these roles are, I think, will be very, very interesting and powerful.
And I hope you're taking notes for the Q&A, because we get to take these on as a workshop later, all of you listening who are going to be part of this workshop. What is it? I'm curious on what is it, Drummond, that you have that look again, the questions that you would want from Julu, Markus, or Stephen, that you're curious about, that you haven't tackled yet?
Oh, that's a good one. You know, I think one of the most important things about this event is that the thing I think is needed most now is the communities that are working on these things, literally the agency community, the A2A community, the MCP community, to start talking to each other, and to the literally the like the registry and the agents folks talking to the identity folks. We're getting that, as Stephen said, we're literally the thing pulling forward interest in DIDs and VCs and trust over IP and DIDCOM and all those things are now the need for those technologies in the agentic economy. So that cross dialogue is super important among those communities that we're all there. I want to emphasize something that at least once a week, I'm also reminded that the great unwashed, and we're talking 99.9% of the folks out there, they're all like, oh yeah, AI is important. They have no concept about what we're talking about here. I give you a very specific example. We're implementing first-person credentials right now for the Linux kernel project, right? The world's most valuable open source project. When we actually got to sit down with the maintainer of the current web of trust of PGP credentials that they use there, we found that the number one issue that we had was, what are DIDs? How do they work? Why would we use them? One hour conversation with those two individuals, and the light bulbs were on. They're like, oh yeah, of course we need that. Of course we want to use that. Of course we should do that. But they really didn't understand what DIDs were. They had a general idea of what verifiable credentials were, but when we actually showed them how it worked, it's like, oh, light bulbs going on all over the place. Multiply that by, essentially every enterprise out there today, and now you see where that's the gap we have to get over.
I'm adding that to the list of gaps. Thank you for enlightening my mind. I was stuck at, we can't rely on our SaaS models, and we need to figure out what our agent's doing beyond our current abilities of systems security. This is exactly what we're looking for. And I see that popping up in the chat as well. Stephen.
I wanted to throw out, since I'm here as the privacy guy and really want to be that, I think this idea of the user controlling their own or handling their own context is a challenge that I'd like to put out to the community, the AI community, which is, rather than that all being stored with the model or, with the service provider, give me a way that I can hold on to the context in an efficient way, can provide it when necessary, update it, and then leave with nothing left behind so that I'm not leaving my trail there. I think that would be a valuable addition to the AI potential that can be put forward. How can I provide a whole bunch of efficiently give information to the government so that I could get AI support in using services, but not leave all of my data behind? I'll leave that.
Granular and composable opportunities, working
Something
with
like
context, but only giving what they need. Yeah,
exactly.
Something like bring your own memory, it seems like.
Exactly.
And
like
for that, you
bring
need
your own
standardization.
memory. Go ahead.
So for that, standardization, because what do you put in this memory that somebody else can read it, right? That's some of the challenges also that will come, that will open.
There is, I'm going to mention, I'm not directly involved with it, but in the loyal agents work, there's the concept of the human context protocol. How can you actually, connect and share with that protocol so you have the, protections around what's being shared there. I'm not deep into that, but I just wanted to mention it as something that I think is trying to go in that direction.
Well, I'm going to call that the end here. we're going to move to the next session. This was identity, and I hope you took notes because we're going to continue as well. Drummond, Stephen, Markus, Julu, thank you so much.